Hello from Illinois. It's Madame Moi. So we have a couple of things that we want to talk about today. We want to talk about online translators as our big number one and why they're bad. There are a lot of really helpful videos out there, and I will link in at least one of them. Now, a lot of them are not appropriate enough to show you because some of the errors that translators can lead you on are so inappropriate. So be very careful when you're using Google translators. Anyway, well, here's one video, and I'll put the link in and I'll show you and I'll discuss why, some of the other reasons why online translators aren't good. But let's talk about your work and how to first avoid online translators because you don't need them. Let's take a look at, say, for example, the work that you would have to turn in. Say, for example, you go to your midterm speaking thing and it says, oh, you have to talk about last week. And you're thinking, I don't know how to talk about last week. Well, okay, you have several options. Now, first option is you go back through your calendar and you say, okay, what were the grammatical concepts? And those are all these people here, these advisors, right? Grammatical explanation, verb review. Oh, you get to review verbs. Maybe that would be it. Or maybe it's this passé composé review, which will go over how to talk about things in the past, which is very helpful. So you would review that document, then maybe write up and then talk about it and then practice and then do your assignment. Now, if that still is too daunting for you, you can always say, okay, well, now I know at least I need to talk about the past. Perhaps I could go to a Google page and say, how to talk about the past in French. You could do that. And then it tells you all that you need to know about talking in French. Now, if that's too much, you can also ask a classmate, call me, text me, and say, hey, I just can't remember how to talk about the past. What do I need to look up? Or what, do you have any suggestions? And I could say, oh yeah, lesson 7, they talked about the grammar. Because sometimes when we just jump to Google Translate, we have some errors. And I'm just going to talk about a couple of them. And let's start off with this very interesting one. When we're talking about the future, say for example, that next assignment I think was saying, I want to be this, or I have two choices, I could be this or I could be that. And what it's looking for is that you're using what's called a future push. And it's very simplified. It's like basically the present tense plus an infinitive, where you're just saying, je vais être. So if you can't remember how to talk about the future, and then all of a sudden you say, well, I want to be a doctor or a physical therapist, and if I were a doctor, blah, 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 and you type all this up, and then you just say, oh, sweet, and then I just read it out loud, then we have a problem because in English, we have nuances to our speaking just like in French. Now, the program was only asking for you to use the future push to say, what are the two things that you want to be? I want to be this, I want to be that. And then saying the positives about that. Well, this person does da da da, and this person does da da da. Notice how there's no condition on all of that. There's no coulds and woulds. But notice when I'm just speaking in English with the things that I know, not thinking of the things that I know in French, I'm using would and were, and these are things that we call the conditional. You're going to get a very complicated here, and not only might it be complicated in the grammar, but it might be words that you don't want to use. Sometimes, for example, if you're typing in the past tense and you're trying to say, hey, I was doing this and I was doing that. Well, there's lots more than just one past tense. There's more than just passé composé and imparfait. There's a plus que parfait. There's a passé simple, which is not really spoken aloud. But since Google Translate uses basically documents that are on the internet and they use those to help translate, sometimes they're going to use the passé simple and they're not going to use the passé composé. And I'm going to go, oh, that person cheated. So overall, you want to avoid Google Translate because it's going to give you more complicated language than what you want. Also, you might not want to use it when you're checking your work because, for example, this was turned into me by someone, and if I look at the English, it looks great. Like for pizza, you need cheese and dough, and you also need Canadian pizza sauce, pepperoni and bacon. Well, okay, Canadian pizza sauce sounds kind of weird, but let's look at the French. When I'm correcting my own grammatical sentences, I have to think about the rules that I know in French. I have to think, okay, the articles agree with the nouns because the nouns have all the power in the sentence. And then So the articles will agree. So let's see, I see my noun tu. Okay, nécessite. Oh, that nécessite doesn't have an S on it, and most times that tu form needs an S on it. Okay, I should change that. And then I see, okay, here's another noun, cheese, fromage. Articles have to match that. This is plural and this is singular. I need to change that. And so I go through and I take step by step. Does my subject match my verb? Does my article match my noun? And do the adjectives agree? And then I go back and say, okay, now does this make sense? And then I go through it. Also, I have to be careful when I'm using a Google Translator because, say, for example, I just want to type up like, oh, I have to go home now, or I have to go to work. And then I just type in I have, and then I see here j'ai. And then so then I'm thinking, oh, great, I've got my answer, but not really. A better website to go to would be wordreference.com. And the reason for that is they will give you more information. Wordreference.com not only tells you what you're looking for, so all I have to do is click have in here, and then it will show me my search, but it's going to tell me what part of speech I'm looking at. So avoir is a verb that is transitive, and we'll talk about transitive much later. But I see a V and I'm like, woohoo, I got a verb. What I need is a verb because it's the action in my sentence. And then I see avoir and I'm like, cool, okay, so I have then this verb avoir. But it also tells me what it means. Own. Do I own it to work? No. But if that's what I was looking for, it would also give me another synonym for that word, which is posséder, which is easier to conjugate than avoir. See, let's take a look at this another one. To have something. Well, that's possess as well. That's not what I want. She has a very strong personality. Yeah, I want to say I have to work. So now I'll continue going down and say I have to do must. I have to do something. S-T-H, something. Still a verb. See the V. I have to finish my work. Wow, that's exactly what I'm looking at. I want to say I have to go to work. So I see devoir faire, and I'm like, oh, that's a whole nother verb. Oh, that's right. Devoir means to have to or to must. I click on that and I get a lot more information. I see again, it's a verb and it's transitive, which again we'll talk about later. But this lovely arrow on all of their verbs is even more helpful because it's going to remind you how to conjugate that verb. So we're looking at conjugating in the present tense, the imparfait, and the passé composé. Now notice there's a lot more tenses out there, but until you've actually been taught them, avoid them because otherwise you're going to wind up with some problem. And although this will tell you how to conjugate it, like how to spell those things, it's not going to tell you which one you need to use. And notice where's the futur proche? Do you see futur proche on here? I don't see futur proche. So you still have to remember that futur proche is the verb aller conjugated in the present tense with your infinitive or whatever verb you need. But it will tell you how to put it in the present, how to put it in the imparfait, and how to put it in the passé composé. It won't tell you which one to use, passé composé versus imparfait. That you're going to have to remember, well, was that a background detail? Or did I just have to do that thing at the one time? Was there a clear cut time, so I should use passé composé? Or was it a background detail, so I should use imparfait? Anyway, if you have questions about that, that's when you also call me, text me, or email me. I hope that answered your questions, and if you have any more, let me know.